I'm really rich. I'm very rich. I'm much richer than anybody ever dreamed. Nobody knows how rich I am.
All right, so President Trump has a rich vocabulary when it comes to counting his wealth, but according to Forbes magazine, his net worth has actually taken a hit since he took office. Though let's be clear, he is still rich. Last year, it was estimated at $3.7 billion. Now it's down to $3.1 billion. The change means Trump has fallen 92 spots on the Forbes 400 list of richest Americans to rank 248th. The same day the list came out, Trump tweeted this: "So much fake news being put in dime magazines and newspapers. Fiction writers." All right, joining me now is Forbes associate editor Dan Alexander to talk about this. So it seems like the president doesn't like to see, him dropping on the list. What's behind it? Why has his net worth fallen?
Well, the biggest thing is that the majority of Donald Trump's net worth is wrapped up in New York City real estate. So although he has tentacles and licensing deals and all of that all over the world, most of it still is Midtown Manhattan real estate. And that market right now is struggling. That's a market that's famous for retail, and Amazon is just crushing retail. That's driving down rents, and therefore also the values of real estate properties in the area in which he has the most.
I'm just curious, how long did it take you to figure this out when it comes to someone like Donald Trump?
Yeah, so we spend more time on Donald Trump's, obviously, than anyone else. And
wow.
That's because Donald Trump's is the most important valuation that we do. So for about the last 2.5 months, I've been going through hundreds and hundreds of pages of documents. We've spoken to probably over 80 different sources in golf and real estate and everything that he touches. So it's a big endeavor, but at the end we feel confident with the number.
Because you have to figure out how much he owns, how much of a stake he has, right, in each venture, and then how much it's worth, right? I mean,
that's exactly it. You've got to figure out what the assets are, how much of each asset he owns, and then what the assets are worth. And once you figure all those out, then you can just add them up, and it's a simple addition problem.
And the fact that he hasn't released his tax returns, that didn't hinder the process?
It'd be nice to see them, of course.
Yeah.
I'd love to see them. But no, we can still do a very thorough evaluation even without the tax returns. Let's tell you more about income. Okay. And what matters most for net worth is what the assets are.
So I understand at Forbes you have something called the Trump rule that has been around for several decades. Explain.
Well, so this is sort of an old joke. It's not something we actually do. But
okay.
Decades ago, we used to joke that when Donald Trump would tell us what he's worth, then you divide it by 3, and then you end up about where he is. And so we always joke about this and say, how ridiculous it is. But it's actually funny. You'll remember at the beginning of his campaign, he said, I'm worth $10 billion in all caps. And now we have him at $3.1 billion. So if you do the math on it, it turns out to be not very different than this old rule that we established back in the 80s.
Right, there you go. That's actually fascinating. By the way, that's still a lot of money. But we know that the president tweeted, I said this earlier at the beginning of the segment, about dying magazines on the same day your story came out. Have you had any direct reaction from the White House?
No, we had a call from the Trump Organization shortly after it came out. It was really interesting. They wanted to know a couple of particulars about how we had come to calculations on 2 specific buildings. So it just showed that they really do care about this. They were asking very minute details, but nothing directly from the White House. We have, of course, heard from other Trump supporters and people who are against Trump. And depending on their persuasion,
it's politically driven or something.
Yeah.
So did the Trump Organization reach out because what they had it something valued at was different than what Forbes did, or they just wanted? So
they didn't express any disagreement with the number. They just wanted to reiterate how we got to a certain one. We had spent a lot of time going through everything with them before the numbers came out, and they just wanted to be clear on one of the calculations.
So tedious. Dan Alexander, thanks for doing that for us and coming on the show. Coming up, Jeannie